Welcome to my presentation for educational research at Carson-Newman. My name is Kat Goddard and my presentation is Motivating Students to Read. First, we must define the issue. The quality of one's literary experience relies not only on the text, but also on the relevance of the reader's past experiences and present interests. What happens in school directly affects how students feel about reading. Unfortunately, there is a mismatch between the school's content requirements and what students want to learn. Time spent reading is linked to reading and writing competence. Many students who do not read leisurely often lose academic ground. Reading instruction is full of mixed messages and inconsistencies. Teachers rarely differentiate to meet the needs of students and spend little time teaching students how to be strategic, yet teachers assign increasingly complex materials to read. Students are expected to read teacher-selected materials only. I will now begin to shed light on general motivation for reading. Many educators have constructed misconceptions about motivation. Some teachers argue that motivation is elusive and beyond their control. However, these perceptions do not adequately capture what motivation is or how it is developed or sustained. For example, in literature, attitude, interest, and motivation can sometimes mean the same thing. Motivation is an integral part of reading instruction. Motivation is aligned to achievement. Students indicate specific reading materials as a motivation to read, as well as the reason for a bad experience with reading. Meanwhile, personal choice was always aligned with positive reading experiences. Pleasure reading is an important goal of reading instruction. It offers rewards that are powerful enough to sustain reading for lengthy periods of time. Engagement is a key factor for motivating children to read, and one that leads to lifelong reading. There are many influences of reading environments on motivation. First, let's consider the classroom as a reading environment. When students engage in reading for academic purposes, reading is no longer a private activity, but an activity that will be evaluated and ultimately reveal something about themselves as students. Thus, reading in the academic context cannot be viewed as a neutral cognitive process, but has to be understood within both the personal and biographical context of the individual reader. Studies indicate that having reading materials of interest available in the classroom is a motivation for reading. Classrooms are rarely good book sources, and even when classroom libraries are extensive, most materials are not among students' top preferences. Student motivation has been linked to a meeting-centered curriculum. This is negotiated by the students and provides a student-responsive culture that values students' voices and their need for self-expression. Research indicates that 3 general themes foster good experiences with reading and writing in school: responsive teachers, student ownership over literacy learning, and participation in literacy programs that connect real-life issues with literacy. Educators need to respect students' cultures and heritage by providing multicultural materials that are relevant to students' lives, as well as resources in their first language. The teacher is an explicit reading model and a key factor in motivating students to read. A book-rich classroom environment is essential to nurturing and supporting readers. However, it is not sufficient for developing highly motivated readers. Reluctant readers indicate that they would read if given adequate time and access to personally engaging materials. Leisure reading also plays a role in motivation. Leisure reading is related to available time, and available time is related to the age of the child. Adolescent students indicate that reading is a way to relieve boredom, escape from stress problems, and/or keep out of trouble. Urban adolescent males and females claim that their reason for not leisurely reading is a lack of interesting resources in the school library. The effects of leisure reading in the home must also be examined. Children's involvement in reading as a leisure activity can be linked to parental encouragement. The frequency of being read to as a young child affects leisure reading behavior. Studies indicate that children's leisure reading behavior, including the number of books read, time spent reading, and family discussions of books, were significantly and positively correlated with higher SES. Parents with different levels of education, income, or occupational status can provide home environments that support and encourage their children's leisure reading. Dinner at home is a social indicator that provides occasions for discussion with parents and others, thus promoting language development. Let's now consider the importance of motivating students to read. Attitude plays a role in reading motivation. General attitude toward reading, both as a pastime and as a school-related undertaking, proved to grow increasingly negative as students pass from first to sixth grade. Engaged readers are motivated to read for different purposes, utilize knowledge gained from prior experience to generate new understandings, and participate in meaningful social interactions and around reading. When students lack a sense of efficacy, they likely wish to avoid challenging reading activities. Therefore, when individuals believe they are successful at an activity, they are more likely to engage in said activity. Reading changes an individual's thinking, attitude, and behavior. Another reason to motivate students to read is that books help master developmental tasks. Psychologists regard self-understanding and self-examination as crucial aspects of human growth. Studies show that students indicate identifying themselves with a character in a book. Research also indicates that some students as finding the ideal self. A student may seek to emulate a character in a book whose traits and behavior have become ideal. Students also have indicated having changed their behavior in some regard because of something they had read. An important task for self-development in adolescence is the building of values. More than half of students questioned indicated books as having helped them to develop values for living or to attain a better understanding of the meaning of life. Voluntary reading offers individuals enjoyment, opportunities for vicarious experience, as well as means for self-help in solving his or her problems of adjustment. There are several best practices for motivating students in the classroom. Techniques that foster literacy in a teacher read-alouds are high-interest read-alouds, teacher giving a dramatic performance, and teacher sharing his or her own personal responses to the text. Several students indicate their preference for independent reading because they get to read at their own pace and not worry about answering questions. Children who do not value reading may benefit from reading books that emphasize meaningful purposes of reading, like How to Care for a Class Pet, or the teacher can get the child involved in a class play. Students who have low self-concept as a reader may benefit from reading experiences in which he or she is successful. The teacher can arrange for that child to read books to a buddy in a lower grade with a lower reading level to promote competence in the struggling reader. If the majority of a classroom indicates that they do not see the value in reading, students may benefit from a more social approach to reading. The teacher can implement cooperative group activities where the teachers teach one another about what they have read, where the students teach one another about what they have read, or involve the class in projects that require reading instructions. Students indicated their primary sources for assessing reading materials are the school library, the public library, and the classroom. However, students also indicated that the material they prefer to read is often not available. There are several recommendations to consider when supporting literacy development. A teacher should provide materials of interest, including magazines, comic books, and the internet, thereby expanding one's definition of reading. The widespread use of the internet means that reading must also include websites, ebooks, email, discussion boards, chat rooms, and instant messaging. Many teachers and librarians use comic books as a way to engage reluctant readers. The comic book format, especially those available on DVD, appeals to visual learners. Other popular formats, especially for ELL or LD students, are the graphic novel and manga. Give students time to read during the school day. Encourage summer reading. Summer reading is critical to summer learning. Work with parents to promote and encourage leisure reading. Parents play a significant role in developing and sustaining the leisure reading habits of their children. And above all, be a mentor. A teacher should be passionate about his or her love of reading. A teacher should display the books he or she is currently reading and discuss what one is reading with students. There are two best practices that I intend to implement. Literature circles are a reading strategy that combines independent reading, cooperative learning, and group discussion. Literature circles are important in helping students become lifelong readers. Collaborative grouping or learning is considered essential for best educational practice. It is student-centered, open-ended, and the small group size compels each student to be an active, responsible group member. Independent reading has the strongest association with reading achievement. Students who are able to choose which book they want to read and read on their own are the students who become the strongest readers. Quality, open-ended questions are necessary to foster discussion. Discussions should follow individual responses and reactions to the reading. Discussion should not include answering teacher-directed questions. What each reader brings to the reading can influence the connection or outcome. When students are provided with a place to discuss their own interpretations, while listening to other students add to their interpretation, more meaning is placed on a book and the act of reading. When considering the reading environment, research indicates that creating spaces for adolescent readers is very important. It is the teacher's responsibility to provide environments conducive to reading, reflecting, and discussing. It is important that students are aware that their opinions and feelings about their readings are valued. Students should be involved in the decision-making process to create an advisory panel for the library, a team to develop their special section of the school's website, and to have their input in selecting reading materials for both the classroom and the library. It is critical to success for all educators and administrators to be actively involved in the crucial effort to place a school-wide focus on adolescent reading. Thank you! This concludes my presentation on motivating students to read. The pages to follow include my professional references for this presentation. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.